taking a good look at the course and adapting your training to do that. And you don't want to do hard sessions. I'll turn this over to Jim, but you don't want to do hard sessions and race sessions every single workout. The way that we develop our system with Tower 26 is 2 A workouts a week, a B, and a recovery C. And so just adapting through your training phase to the race, that's going to give you the optimal performance to be race ready.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun Podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 42 of the show. This week we're doing something a little bit different. It's our first AMA-style episode, which is AMA, if you don't know about that, it's called Ask Me Anything. But because we don't know anything, we have 2 Tower 26 coaches, Megan Melgaard and Jim Lubinski. We were super lucky to get these experienced coaches on the show, and it was actually more fun than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be very here are the facts, but we had a great time with them. We asked them a bunch of listener questions about open water swimming, and it's safe to say that we learned a ton and that we think you will as well.
Absolutely. On to the training updates. So Chris and I had a really great week of training this week on our way to the final prep for Odyssey Swimrun Austin. We had a 3-hour swim run practice down in Aquatic Park. Shared a little bit about that on our Instagram story, so make sure you're following us there. It's almost taper time, so be sure to give our wives a prayer or thoughts and prayers as we for sure will be moody on race week as we dial down training and probably just dial up snacking. And if you are racing Odyssey Swimrun, be sure to check out our course preview guide that we have.
Yeah.
But a little bit teaser on that one.
Yeah. So for shout outs this week, we're doing a combo shout out / Feats of Endurance Award for Adrian Cameron. So he's a member of our Strava club, and he participated in Odyssey's training day course preview over the weekend, and he was essentially our man on the ground. After the training session, he posted his workouts and published a note that basically had all the breakdown, all his intel on the course, which we thought was really great because no one's ever done the course before. And it was really nice of him to share his knowledge. So for that alone, that was enough to get a shout out, and the Feats of Endurance because he did do his swimrun practice. But if that wasn't enough, we got the idea Sunday night pretty late to essentially see if he could come on the show to do an addendum to the Austin course preview, and he was totally down to help with that and recorded that, and that's already out. So
that snuck right into your podcast players last couple nights ago.
Yeah, kudos to Chipper for turning that around super quickly. But yeah, so that addendum episode's out now, and there's a lot of tips in there as to what Adrian experienced on the course to have everyone be as dialed in as possible for this new race. So major tip of the hat to Adrian. Thanks you so much for everything that you do.
Yes, thank you, Adrian. Now for everybody's favorite segment, theme song, This Week in Swimrun. We have a short report this week. Ödyssey Cans took place over the weekend. The weather looked much better than last year, and everything that we saw about the event looked to be top-notch, everything that we come to expect now from Ödyssey branded races. Big shout-out to former guest of the show, Desiree, for winning the mixed division with her partner, Guillaume Henneman, and for Nicholas Ramirez of Onville Coaching, who finished 3rd place overall with his swim run partner,
Francesque
G. We'll just call him friend. Yeah. So anyway, now we're going to Spain, where the Canary Islands are for Swimrun
Fuerteventura.
For Swimrun Fuerteventura, where that took place. We can't believe we're saying this, but we may have added another race to our bucket. Dude, we got to look at this bucket list. It's overflowing.
It's too long.
Bucket list floweth over.
Yeah.
The photos of the event look spectacular. I'm sure they didn't do it justice, but it looked like straight paradise to swim and run and swim run in. So we're sure we missed some events, so be sure to send us an email, lowtideboys@gmail.com, and tip us off if there's a race that you're doing or one that you want us to include. You can also get into those DMs there on Instagram, at the Low Tide Boyz.
Nice job, Chipper.
Thank you.
So now on to the Low Tide Boyz updates. So our latest column is out in Triathlete Magazine and wherever you go to your digital newsstands, but basically triathlete.com, to read about what to expect at your first swim run race. So obviously we mentioned Odyssey since that's the first race that's coming up and the last race of the year for swim runners out there. So check it out. Let us know what you think. If you like the article, give it a thumbs up because that helps us prove our value to them. And yeah, we hope you enjoy it. In other news, we found out that Odyssey is super close to selling out their Swimrun Austin race. I think it was less than 20 entries.
Less than 20 entries left.
So if you want to join us in Texas and you're waiting for the last minute and it's safe for you to go down there, your time is now.
The last minute is right now.
Is now. So you can still use the code Low Tide Boyz with a Z for 25% off, but we really encourage you getting on that or else you're going to be in the FOMO boat. In addition, if you're racing Austin and you still need a wetsuit and you missed out on the ARC rental, let us know. So we have 3 men's medium suits, a Blue 70 Alliance Swimrun long sleeve wetsuit, which probably wouldn't recommend since the water temps are going to be pretty high. An Orca RS1 and a Head My Boost Pro sleeveless, and then 2 large suits, again, another Blue 70 Alliance, which might be a little bit too warm, and then a Zone 3 Swimrun Evolution short sleeve suit. So if you need a suit and you're either a medium or a large, hit us up, Low Tide Boyz with a Z, and we will bring it for you.
Yes, we will. I think the Zone 3 might be... Oh, it's a medium large. So it's like a taller...
an ML.
An ML. So...
Yeah.
You know, if you're close on the sizing, just shoot us a message. We probably have, if you're a man or you wear men's wetsuits and you're between, 160 to like 200 pounds, we probably got something, or 220 even. We probably have something for you if you don't want to spring for the cash on that.
Yeah. And then we still have gear on our website, so check that out. We got stickers and shirts, and yeah, you can find all that on our website. So finally, in case you haven't gotten enough Odyssey Swimrun Austin content, we are hosting a Facebook, Instagram live event. Well, I mean, I guess event makes it sound bigger than what it is. We are convening.
We'll be on Instagram for 30 minutes
on Saturday, which is this Saturday, so October 24th at 5 p.m. Pacific, with Lars and the Odyssey team to basically answer anyone's questions they might have about the race. So this is an opportunity. It's sort of like a pre-race briefing. So if you have any questions, join us. You can find us at either Odyssey's Instagram or Facebook page or the Low Tide Boyz Instagram and Facebook page to check that out. And yeah, we'll be taking questions and, trying to help people out.
Totally. Get those last minute questions in there and we'll do some seeding opportunities. So if you have questions that are popping up now, you'll be able to drop those on our Instagram page earlier in the week as we lead up to this. But we will see you there. So now on for this week's AMA-style interview with Megan and Jim from Tower 26. They're both very experienced triathlon and open water swim coaches. Megan even has done a few swim runs herself.
Yeah, Swimrun Georgia.
Swimrun Georgia, and then Swimrun North Carolina.
Yeah.
Wow. That took me a while to dig that out of the banks.
I'll
fix that.
Banks.
I'll fix that in post. It'll make
it
sound like I came right up with it.
I think you just got to have like the Jeopardy music.
The Jeopardy music. Okay, perfect. I can do that. So we peppered them with questions that everybody sent in to us. So thanks for sending that on our, either on our Instagram thing or email or whatever. We appreciate it. So we got you covered with how to kind of get started with open water swimming. What's the best way to use your open water swim sessions to replace pool sets? Equipment we talked about, obviously, because the paddles and the buoy and all that stuff. So there was great info here that, again, I just kind of find myself as I'm listening to these episodes over when we're editing them or recording them, just super useful that I'm like everything they're saying, I'm just jotting down a note or two. So there's a couple really solid things.
Yeah, it's kind of like you always think you're really mature, and then you look back and you realize what a dumbass you were. Like you thought you were mature in high school, and you get to college and you're like, I was such a little shit.
Yeah.
I feel like it's that way about my knowledge of swimrun. I thought I knew a lot about swimrun, but every time we have these conversations,
I
just realize how much I didn't know. But Anyway,
we're getting schooled on a weekly basis, is what you're saying, Chris?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
But it was a great conversation, and we already anticipate having him back on the show to answer more listener questions in the near future. So
enjoy this week's episode with Jim and Megan from Tower 26.
Not Tower 25 or Tower 27.
In the middle. AMA style interview.
So sultry.
Ask me anything. Whoa, where did that come from?
All right, with us today we have Megan Melgaard and Jim Lubinski from Tower 26 Fitness. They are open water swim coaches, and they've agreed to come on to essentially answer a bunch of questions about swimming. Welcome to the show, guys.
Oh, my God. I have been hearing about the Low Tide Boyz for decades. I mean, it is an honor and a privilege to be on the show with you two personalities of the airwaves. I mean, I just could not be more floored that you guys invited us onto this show. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, technically, we invited Megan, and she invited you.
Oh, God. You know what? I knew that was coming, and I knew we were going to start off the show like this. So you guys want to play? Let's play. This is, you know, who's going to take over these airwaves for the Low Tide Boyz? It's going to be called the Low Tide Lube pretty soon.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, Megan was the A guest, and then she's like, can I bring Jim along? We're like, yeah,
He's
I
my
can make it work.
partner in crime.
I think she's
I got a
she's
remora
regretting
fish
this.
that follows me around. This guy, you know, I can never get off my back, so I got to bring him where I go. That's what she said. So I kind of just, that's what I do. I kind of stomp on her star wherever she goes. I'm putting a damper on it. So thank you, Megan, for the invite. I appreciate that.
Thanks for coming along.
So getting on to the Tower 26 podcast, what do you want to address today on the show, Meg?
The fact that you're tethered to me.
This is the Low Tide Boyz podcast.
So
This is already my favorite
it's great
episode.
to be here. Let's give some good info and have some fun along the way.
This is already my favorite episode. So before we get into like open water swim questions from our listeners and stuff and ourselves, to be honest, can you guys tell us a little bit more about yourselves, like how you got involved in sort of triathlon, open water swimming, and sort of what's been your exposure to swim run?
Go ahead, Meg. I'll let you take that one.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. Can somebody mute that guy? No, I'm just kidding. We're tethered together. But
Same thing my wife says. That's funny. My wife says
Nice.
that 23 hours a day.
That was a nice swim run.
no, it's really great to be here. Thank you guys for having us both on. My partner in crime, but I've learned so much from Jim being here with Tower 26, and really excited again to be on. I started as a pool swimmer at University of Florida many, many years ago, and after grad school, I started doing some adventure races. Moved to Atlanta and didn't have any more adventure racing partners. So I got into Xterra off-road triathlon, podiumed at World Championships many, many years ago for that. Continued to do a bunch of off-road, got into road triathlon, came back to adventure racing, open water swimming, and found Swimrun about 15 years ago was my first one when I lived in Southern California. Then moved back to Atlanta again, getting back into on-road triathlon and some adventure racing. And a friend of mine said, there's this really cool race up in Maine. Would you like to go do it? Swimrun. So I said, yeah, of course. So gave that a shot. That was my second experience into Swimrun, kind of phase 2, where it's graduated to where it is now, which is really, really exciting to be a part of.
Awesome. And Jim, so you used to play hockey. What?
Yeah, so I mean, I was I didn't know what the heck triathlon was. I didn't do endurance sport. When you grow up in Chicago, you pretty much play ice hockey, shovel snow, and eat sausage all day long. That's all you do. You don't run. You don't do any of this stuff. So I played ice hockey. Actually, let's back up. Back in 7th grade, I won the state championship for the mile. In 7th grade, I ran 4 minutes 59 seconds for a mile.
Wow!
Right. So I knew I was crazy from the outset. So I gave that up. I retired on top. I was like Jordan, retired on top. I went to play baseball, whatever. I played ice hockey, played Division I ice hockey, came out, played a year of minor league professional, just, the trash leagues. I was broken noses, lost my teeth, traded 3 times in 1 year. It was just a pain. Never unpacked my car. So I said, forget this. I'm going to retire. I'm going to move out to LA. I'm going to start a new life out there. So on the way moving out, one of my buddies in Chicago, he was in the triathlon, right? He said, hey, you guys should do this. And I saw some guys running around in some tight spandex. I said, hey, look, I look good in tight spandex. Let me start doing this. So I started in Chicago. I moved out to LA where everybody was wearing tight spandex. And yeah, I really got into it. This was 2005. I dabbled in the sport here and there for a couple of years. I took a year off, 2007, got back into it 2008. Really put my nose to the grindstone and took the same training methodologies that I used in ice hockey, which is weird. You wouldn't think it's the same, and put it towards triathlon. Pretty much just turned off my brain and went as hard as I could. Made some huge gains and turned professional that year. Knowing that when I was done being a professional triathlete, I would need something to do. I started coaching that year as well. I met Jerry, God knows how long ago, and he kind of mentored me as a swim coach. Fast forward 11 years now, I've been swim coaching with Tower 26, Coach Jerry, and now we have Coach Megan. We're blessed to have Coach Megan come on board. And over those years, I've coached athletes of all different distances, all disciplines within the endurance sport community, whether it be runners, cyclists, swim, run. You get the same mentality, very similar training methodologies. Actually, during COVID, we came up with some new fun aspects that we're going to start incorporating into our athlete schedules. And like I said, you train one endurance athlete, you've trained them all. It's just teaching them to turn that brain off and, put up with the pain, which is the fun part. But if you want me to keep going, I could stay and talk about myself.
No, that's
2 hours.
pretty good.
Fine.
That's enough.
Should I keep
That's
going?
enough, Jim. Thanks.
What line were you on in hockey?
What line? So I was on the grinder line. So it's usually the third line. I wasn't on the goon line, even though
you're not a goon. I would have had you pegged for a goon, though.
I do still hold. I think I still hold the penalty minute lead for one of the teams I played for in Bismarck, North Dakota. Either first or second on that list. But I was not an official fighter. I did what it took to get the job done, but I was known as a grinder. So I could score, I could get in the corners, muck it up, I could fight, I could assist. I kind of did what it took to
You're all-around player.
Done.
Great.
Yeah, so I think it was like the third line. I wasn't one of the benders on the fourth line.
Okay, good to know.
Make that clear. I'm not making that clear. But you guys sound like you have your hockey lingo down. That's exciting.
I just know enough to be dangerous and to hang in conversations, but beyond that, I'm a little bit.
It's like a foreign language, just enough to.
What's weird about this whole COVID situation? There are so many sports happening right now. There's so much going on. I didn't even know the Tampa Bay Lightning won the championship, the Stanley Cup 2 days ago. I was like, I saw it the next morning. I said, I get lost in all these sports that are going on. All I'm thinking about is swim run.
Well, you know what? That's just like us, Jim. So I heard you say something interesting about you found some new things in the COVID era that you're going to start implementing. I was wondering if you and Megan could share a little bit of more details or shed a little bit more light on some of the new stuff that you've picked up on in this interesting time we're in.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things is that we've integrated in that Megan, myself, and Coach Jerry have really worked into the program is virtual racing, right? So we couldn't race in person all year long. We had a lot of athletes lacking motivation, lacking, the drive to fight one day into the next to make the gains that they should be making in the opportunity that this is presented. So I thought, okay, how can we keep these athletes motivated? So we thought, let's put on a virtual race series where they're competing against other athletes within the Tower 26 community. We didn't open up to everybody in the world, just people within our community where they're getting that race feel without the pressure of real race day. They're executing, their race nutrition, their race pacing, the mindfulness they're going to need during the race, pre-race nutrition, night before nutrition, recovery protocol, taper, all this kind of bullcrap that you do on race day and going in the race day. We've worked into this race series where they're working on this and they're going into these races, treating it like a real race and having some amazing breakthrough performances. So when the real racing does open up, these athletes it's just going to be second nature because they've done it so many times in the past. Because honestly, when you're doing swim run, how many swim runs can you do a year?
Well, this year, not many. Yeah. But honestly, Jim, that I think that's genius. I mean, I'm a lawyer. Don't hold that against me. But in law school, I took this class and I was a litigator for a long time. And in law school, this professor's like, you want to learn what it's like to do a trial? Read these 20 books. These 20 books equal one trial. And I read the books because I wanted to be a trial lawyer. And it doesn't replace the experience of actually racing, but I agree that you can flex that muscle. You can work on your little pre-race rituals. You can work on your nutrition and all that stuff and sort of dial it in virtually. So then when races do come back, you can.
I mean, and I say this to Megan all the time that we're not going to stop doing these virtual events, even when real racing does open up, because it's so beneficial having this dress rehearsal, because you go into Otillo and you're like, okay, I don't know what it's really, I know I've trained 1,000 hours going into this race, but how is it really going to feel when I get on course going from swim to run to swim to run, swim to run, swim to run, running with a buoy and blah, blah, blah. Now you can act because of and you got to make it like, okay, this is the weekend we're doing it. This is our team. We're going to do it. We're going to compete against each other. We'll maybe make it into a series like we did. So they're going into it with some skin in the game, and they are actually going and treating it like a race. Because then when the big money day does come, you don't even think. You're ready for it. Yep. And I'm answering all these questions. I have coached all these one-on-one athletes who are doing the race series, and they say, I was so nervous going into the virtual event. I'm so nervous doing this. I didn't know my pacing on this. I had no idea how this would turn out. Whereas usually these things would happen after an Ironman where they paid $800 plus God knows how much other money to take part. Now we're ironing all this out before they go to this big day, and it's all figured out. So it's the same way with what you guys are doing. Like, let's work in a ton of events going into race day where you're treating it like a race.
Yeah, I mean, part of the way we've learned this from, actually, we probably learned more about Swimrun from actually hosting a podcast than we definitely knew from doing it. But there's definitely a lot of technique to work on, especially in transitions. As you mentioned, they sort of go on for a long time. Depending on the race, it could be 20 transitions, 40 transitions. So, the procedure for each of those is unique because each race is unique. Unlike Ironman, where that distance, what it's going to be, you kind of know what to expect. In Swimrun, it's pretty much every race is its own thing, and you can only really compare it to itself if you've done it in previous years. So we really wanted to have you guys on because we get a lot of questions about open water. Open water is where these events take place, whether it's lakes, rivers, oceans, quarries, whatever. And with pools being closed for a lot of folks in the U.S., they're sort of the only thing they have left is swimming in open water if they want to train for some of these races that are coming up. Now, for folks that aren't super experienced in open water, are there any tips that you guys have to sort of, like, what would be your sort of beginner strategy for someone who sort of, maybe has like fear of wildlife or whatever it is, cold water, currents, stuff like that? What say you?
Meg, you want to take that?
Sure thing. Yeah. First and foremost, safety is of the utmost importance. That's paramount. So if you're not used to swimming in open water, I would check the conditions like you noted there in terms of weather, water temperature, currents, wildlife, so on and so forth, and do some research and look at clubs that might be in the area that you can garner some information. Certainly swim with a buddy. And then I would start slowly. So start in a place, if you have the luxury of doing so, where you can stand, and also develop a safety stroke right off the bat. So there can be a tremendous amount of anxiety going into open water in certain scenarios, and training your mind as well as we're training our body to get ready for getting into that experience. So literally dip your toes in, get your feet wet, but know where you're going. And if you're in doubt, don't go out. But having a safety stroke, like breaststroke, even just breaststroke arms, doggy paddle, side stroke, turning over on your back and floating just to catch your breath for a little bit, having those tactics, I think, would be the first place where I would start. And then, as we say at Tower 26, frequency is a really great way to begin getting over your fears. So even if you're starting out with short swims, make it available in your schedule to go swimming frequently so you can adapt to the situation and learn more as you go and get more comfortable.
Wow, I love that. And I specifically have, and I kind of, I wouldn't say I was the most confident open water swimmer back in, my triathlon days. And there was one race that I just kind of panicked a little bit about, 200 yards out from the beach. And I simply just was like, okay, I had already thought in my, I already sort of stored away in my brain. My plan is if I freak out, roll over, take a couple breaths, like the little otter playing with the shell at the Monterey Bay Aquarium for all the locals here in California. But that's exactly what I did. And it's hard to keep some of those thoughts about, like, when it's a race about, oh my God, I'm falling so far behind and all this stuff. But I did that. It was probably only 5 to 10 seconds of like, catching my breath, getting my shit together, and then I took off and actually ended up having my best race ever at the half Ironman distance, even with that sort of setback. So it is very important, and I guess I'll just echo what Megan said.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. You always got to you got to like know what to do if you're going to hyperventilate, right? It happens to everybody. I mean, it happens to the best swimmers in the world. It happens to the average swimmers. It happens to the weaker swimmers. But you just got to be anticipating worst case scenario. Like you did. You knew, okay, this might happen. I recognize it, chill out, and then keep moving forward because it happens to everybody.
Do you recommend for beginners one of those kind of like pool buoy behind the flotation?
Personal swim buoy?
Yeah.
A swim safety buoy?
There you go. Swim safety
Yes,
buoy.
absolutely. They're not life-saving devices, to be technical with that part to your lawyer background. But they're wonderful for visibility, and they do float, obviously, so you can hang on to them and use them as a short-term rest.
Yeah, and get like
option.
Yeah, good for like kind of the peace of mind too. And I do like your recommendation about finding groups or something around. I know in the Bay Area we're lucky. We probably have 10 different open water swimming groups, but hopefully in your kind of area, wherever you are, listeners, you can find a similar group to go with there because safety's in numbers there.
Yeah, definitely always swim with somebody. Don't go out there alone. Think you're going to be a hero. Have somebody with you at all times. And, like me with all the athletes, a coach, I always assign one of them every week to paddleboard right next to me. Be like, okay, it's your week to paddleboard with coach. Right?
Oh,
I just put it on the schedule.
Nice.
They do as I say. I'm in charge.
as
I am the captain.
Yeah.
I am the captain.
You're the boss.
And one other fun thing that I've learned along the years in terms of people that are more nervous, then give them a swim mantra that they can say in their head that takes off the focus of the anxiety. Like I had one gal who he said, you know what? Do you like pink bunnies? And she looked at me pretty funny and she said, yes. I said, okay, if you start to get nervous, repeat to yourself, I like pink bunnies. I like pink bunnies. I like pink bunnies. And it will take your focus off of being nervous or anxious.
I don't know why, but I started thinking of the Sir Mix-a-Lot.
I love pink bunnies. Who doesn't? Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, are you nervous about open water if you think about pink bunnies?
I can't believe I'm saying this on air, but just you saying that kind of reminded me of the Sir Mix-a-Lot song. It's like, all I kept thinking is like, I like pink bunnies and I cannot lie.
So there's your mantra.
That's funny because what I do, I say I like big butts the whole time. It's funny you brought that up.
So a lot of Sir Mix-a-Lot fans here.
But we, beyond the beginners, when if say you're comfortable in the water and we only have access to open water right now, when we go to the pool. And one thing that separates us at Tower 26 from a lot of other master's programs is we practice in the pool everything we're going to use on race day in our open water. So we practice sighting, we practice drafting, we practice deck ups where we get up, run around, jump back in. So we're practicing at heart rate spike. Mm-hmm. We practice race takeout speed, pace line, close quarter swimming. We all do all that stuff in the pool. We don't have access to pools right now. So a lot of athletes are getting in their quality swims in the open water. And I stress quality because there's high value swimming and there's low value swimming. Low value swimming is just going out and swimming for a half hour with no real goal in mind. High value swim in the open water is getting something out of every session, whether you're doing circuits at different percentage each session, whether you're working on different skills. Cause like you guys brought up, you go to your race and there's going to be all these different variables. There's going to be water temperature. There's going to be sharks. There's going to be, no, it's not going to be sharks, but there's going to be all these different, and you want to be able to deal with whatever's thrown your way. So you got to go out there and practice and experience everything that could be thrown your way. If there's a current, go swim into the current for a half hour and see how your stroke has to change to swim into that current and make that the goal for your session. If you're, if it's going to be cold water, find a cold water that you can go swim in. Obviously you want to warm up and do it smart, but you got to get your body ready to perform in the conditions that could be thrown your way on race day. And I say it all the time, like you got to have a ton of different tools in your toolbox. So when you go into racing, you can pull out any tool and be ready for whatever is going to present itself on race day. Because we all know after every single race, you sit around at the athlete table eating food and everybody's got their own story about what adverse condition killed them for the day and an excuse why they didn't have their best day. You don't want to have that excuse. You want to go into race day as best prepared as you can be with high value sessions. So go into every open water workout with a goal, with a plan as to what you're going to work on. Are you going to work on percentage of effort? Are you going to work on sighting? Are you going to work on buoy turns? Are you going to work on swimming with a tether with the dead weight partner that you have for your swim run?
That would be me. So
make it high value versus just going out. No, I'm just going to go swim for a half hour. Like, you get nothing out of that. If you're a beginner, maybe you might get the feel. You get, like Megan was saying, you get out there and just get that frequency in and get the feel for the open water. But once you pass 10 sessions, then it's time to start putting a little focus on, what you're doing in those workouts.
Great segue there, Jim. So let's plan this hypothetical situation. I'm an athlete, and I work with Tower 26 or whoever, and I've been doing kind of the run-of-the-mill 30-minute open water swim sessions, nothing really specific. How would you two recommend me kind of up-leveling my training? And what would a sample kind of workout or a structure be for the same 30 minutes or 60 minutes or whatever, but with something specific to kind of work on for that session?
Yeah. So Meg, you want to take that?
Go for it. I'll follow up.
Yeah. So what we do is we have every Wednesday in Santa Monica, Tower 26, hence the name Tower 26. We meet at Tower 26 when not COVID going on. We didn't get a beach permit this year. They weren't giving out beach permits. I do know a lot of people, but I don't know that many people that could give us a beach permit during these situations. Maybe I should talk to one of you guys. Chip, could you have gotten us? You might have been able to give us a permit.
The only thing I know about permits and beaches is from the movie Jaws, and I don't think that would.
I don't know, man. If I dropped Low Tide Boyz at the Santa Monica permit office, I'm sure they would have been like, "Oh, Low Tide Boyz? Hell yeah, you can have a permit. Here's 2 of them."
You might only get a permit when the tide's low, so that might work for it.
Funny enough, it's I feel like it's never low here. Weird stuff. But hey, so we have these, and the thing is, a lot of athletes come to us and they're going to these other triathlon groups in the LA area. These other triathlon groups in the LA area. I won't say any name of any other triathlon groups in the LA area. And they're used to going out with these groups and having low value sessions. They just get out, hey, do whatever you want, go swim for 30 minutes, come on back. When athletes get to the beach at 6:30, promptly at 6:30, we have our pre-athlete meeting. Our athletes go out, they run, they do their warm-up, they run down the beach 5 minutes, they run back 5 minutes. We do a little talk about what we're going to do, how we're going to execute through the day for the workout of the day. We put out buoys. We have 2 buoys that we put out. We make it different types of circuits, maybe 3 buoys. We make a box circuit maybe 1 week. We make an M circuit 1 week. Maybe we make a rectangle, an in-water triangle 1 week. So we have a different circuit every week that we're going to work. We do our little warm-up. It's maybe a 10-minute warm-up. The athletes come in at 10 minutes. It kind of separates into groups from there. We have 1 to 5 groups. And each group, and the coach leads the workout. Myself, Coach Jerry, Coach Megan lead the workout, right? So each group goes off on each circuit, and we give them a goal for that circuit. Okay, the first circuit, I want you to keep it 70% effort and sight every 3 to 4 strokes, right? So we're giving them specific goals to hit on every circuit. Next circuit, 85%. And I want you to pace line the whole way through. Next circuit, I want you guys to swim past the break, 50 strokes, regroup, and have a race start in deep water as you go through the circuit at 90%. Okay, next circuit, you're going to do a race pace circuit. You enter the water fast and get after it and use each other to get through the circuit via pace line. So there's all these different tools in your toolbox that you can pull out. And that's what's nice being a coach or having a coach to lead you through it, that they do the thinking for you. Then you just go execute. But if you don't have a coach, write it down beforehand. Be like, okay, the first time I go out, maybe you don't have a circuit. Maybe you have to visualize 2 buoys. Okay, 100 meters out, turn, 100 meters across, turn, 100 meters in, run from cone to cone, and then you start your next circuit. So you got to kind of think outside the box as to how are you going to get the most out of this session without it just being a low value session. And it takes some pre-planning, but there's plenty of different tools that you can work on throughout the session. I mean, you guys could probably list 100 long, or make a list 100 points long of what athletes can work on in these sessions. Go into it with a goal, go into it with a focus, and go execute that with that focus as you execute these sessions.
So Jim, and Megan, so for Swimrun, a lot of these events, unlike a triathlon where you just do the swim, you get it over with, and you move on to the next phase, you're going back to the swim. So let's say there's a race in Texas that's happening on November 8th that you should listen to our course preview show if you want to learn more about that. But,
I listened to it. I was actually enthralled. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. I listened to it right before this. If you guys haven't listened to it, also, you guys, not to get off on another subject, but you know what? For the amount of value you're giving all these, I mean, how much is a swim run wetsuit, guys? How much does it cost?
$300.
$300 these people are paying. How much are they paying to travel to these races, race entry? Donate to these guys Patreon. All right, give these guys a couple bucks to provide this free entertaining knowledge to you. Patreon, $2 a month. Pay these guys.
We really appreciate
pay their hosting and, as they say, buy a couple beers.
Jim, are you trying to get a free?
How's that sound?
Are you trying to get a free T-shirt, Jim? What's going on here? Some stickers?
I'm just looking out for my new friends, my new best friend. I need a couch to stay on when I come up to Monterey. That's a really big.
Fair enough. So, yeah. So anyway, so a lot of these races. So let's say there's one in November.
Gonna edit that out.
Where there's. Oh, hell no. There's basically like 3.5 miles total of swimming, but it's mixed up. You're swimming like 800 yards, then you're swimming 600, then you're swimming, maybe 200, then a mile. So for something like that, how would you sort of come up with open water swim program to kind of adapt to that? Will you just do a lot of in the water, out of the water stuff, or would you, what would be your thoughts on sort of setting something up that would work?
Meg, go ahead. You've done these races before. What would you do?
Yeah, sure. I'll take this one. Thanks, guys, for the question. And I think it's a wonderful question in many different ways, because everybody has a different scenario and different landscape and waterscape that they have to work with. So our current Tower 26 workouts, we are building them out for both pool and open water sessions. And the open water sessions, like the last one I looked at the other day, we had 10 times 100 strokes. First 20 strokes are easy. Hard 80 strokes, hard actually 80, 85%, and then 20 easy. Repeat that. Those are types of things that you could do to help with the different heart rate changes that we're dealing with in swim run. That's number one, like actually in the water. Number two, what Jim was saying about our course here in Santa Monica, we're lucky that we have a lot of great beach space that's hard packed sand that you can run on. So our workouts are designed so if it's a triangle day, you swim out and then back and then run along the beach. So you can do different circuits like that, and you can lengthen the swim. So if you have a 500-meter swim and a half-mile run, you can actually set up your own little training course to be able to do that. You can do 2 loops around whatever your setup is in the water if it's 1,000, and so on and so forth. And stay in the water safely where you are training to be able to get in the different chunks. When I lived in Georgia, we had a beautiful cove that was half mile out, half mile back. And I'd run out to the point and then swim back and just do that repeat. Or I would do out and back swim, out and back run, just depending on what the race was that I was preparing for. So it's really taking a good look at the course and adapting your training to do that. And you don't want to do hard sessions. I'll turn this over to Jim, but you don't want to do hard sessions and race sessions every single workout. The way that we develop our system with Tower 26 is 2 A workouts a week, a B, and a recovery C. And so just adapting through your training phase to the race, that's going to give you the optimal performance to be race ready.
Nice. That's really great insights that both of you shared. And the way I kind of digested that a little bit, and I don't know why I hadn't thought about this before, is that for open water, you totally have to adjust your mindset, because for some reason people feel when they get in open water, they can't ever get out or their workout's over. But when you're in a lap pool, you stop and hang on the side of the thing while you take your breath in between your hundreds or whatever. So it's not a bad thing to have an open water workout structured where there's different breaks or there's different segments of it, and it's not just one big 30-minute, let me go splash around for a bit. So I did appreciate that both of you had that on there. Now,
yeah, I mean, low value versus high value, right?
Yeah.
What do you get the most return on investment?
So I have another quick add-on question I'm going to throw in here. So let's say ideal conditions, pools are open water, you have great access to both. Sort of unstructured. From a swimming perspective, specifically for a swim run kind of training plan or a workout, what would your if you have 3 to 4 swims a week, how would you sort of position those? You kind of mentioned you have 2 big swims. Are you trying to make your open water the A effort swim on the weekend, or how are you thinking about how your week is kind of planned out?
Yeah, I mean, so you definitely want to keep the pool swims in your program, because pool swims is where you work on all the variables, like, where all that stuff becomes ingrained into your stroke. Because once you get out into the dynamic environment of open water swimming, all of a sudden you start sighting in open water and you haven't sighted at all in the
pool.
You're using muscles you haven't used before. You're not used to it. So we work on all the small things, all the technical things in the pool. We work on your percentage effort in the stable environment of the pool. So then when you go out to your open water swims at least once a week, you might be able to fit another in the week in the weekend, but you definitely keep those pool swims to work on those small variables, sighting, percentage of effort. You get a lot of athletes who don't realize that you have different percentage of effort, and on race day you use all those percentage of effort, 70, 80, 90, threshold effort, above threshold effort, and you don't know what you're going to have to pull out. So you figure out all this stuff in the pool in that stable environment. So then when you go to that dynamic environment of the open water, you have all these tools you can use, and you're comfortable because of the practice you did in the nice serenity of the pool.
So would you say, so it's almost, what I'm kind of hearing is like an analogy to kind of running, where you use your track workout to kind of work on tempo and all turnover and
your gears,
economy and all this stuff. And then, your open water would essentially be sort of a race where there might be hills, there might be turns, there might be all kinds of stuff. And so is that kind of how you'd see that?
Yeah, totally. Because what you need to do is you work on all the skills, like you're saying, you work on skills, and then you go out and you apply those skills in the real world environment. It's like riding a trainer versus riding outside. Riding the trainer, you don't have to worry about stoplights, you have to worry about starting, you have to worry about traffic, but you don't get the bike handling skills, but you can work on pedal stroke, you can work on stability, you can work on relaxation. You get the feel for all the skills you need. So when you do go outside and you get comfortable riding on the road, you can apply all those skills. Same thing in swimming. You work on all the skills in the pool. You work on those percentages efforts. You work on, whatever your focus of the workout is today. Sighting. We do deck ups in the pool. So, we pull ourselves out. We run around the bleachers. We dive back in. So we're used to that heart rate spike and then getting back in the race pace after that heart rate spike. So then when we go to the open water, we get in open water, do our circuit. We run out onto the beach. We stand up. We run cone to cone, and we're used to that heart rate spike from the deck ups that we did in the pool. So we're practicing all this stuff to get the feel. So when we go into the water, the open water, we have that feel, and then we can actually concentrate on performance. We don't have to worry about acquiring all these skills, or, we sight a good majority of the year during our main set. We're sighting every 4 to 6 strokes in the pool. So then when we go to open water, it's just part of our stroke. We don't have to think about it.
Great. Nice. Thank you. So I guess we're going to enter what some might consider a controversial area. So
I'm all about controversy.
I figured you would be excited for this one, Jim. So the majority of swim runners race with paddles and a buoy. So the question that is a head scratcher for some of us: how often should swim runners specifically be training with your buoy and your paddles?
I think this is a good one for Meg.
Sure. I think it's very, very important to train with the equipment that you're going to be racing with. And we'll start with shoes. We used to, in swim practice when I was a kid, up until college even, it was torture to do kick sets with shoes on to really build the legs. And so what I found was you really want buoyant shoes, because that was going to make that set a whole lot easier. So practicing, again, with the equipment that you're going to use in the race. So play with the shoes that you are going to be most comfortable with. You definitely want, in my opinion, I like the floaty shoes, and I like to have shoes that have the holes in the bottom so the water can drain. I don't want to swim with shoes every single swim workout, because that's quite a TSS load, if you will. So back to what Jim was saying, there are specific things that you want to work on in a workout. So I would probably swim with shoes once, maybe twice a week, depending on how many workouts you have. Paddles is that's a great question. You don't want to start with what you guys have said before, is like the dish plate size paddles. You really need to start small with small paddles, build up the muscles, build up that endurance to be able to grow into bigger sets of paddles. Because if you decide you're going to get the biggest pair of stroke makers out there, you're guaranteed to get an injury, more or less. So it's building into that. With Tower 26, we start every single workout with stretch cords. So it's strengthening those muscles. It's prepping you for a great swim. So I would say on that paddle front, making sure that you're strong within the movement and then building up to a paddle that's the best size for you. Pool buoy is great for so many things. Tautness, alignment, people who have corrections that might be needed in their stroke in terms of their body position. A pool buoy is just going to go ahead and correct that right off the bat, typically for 90% of the people. So it's picking the right buoy in swim run, making sure that you're using one that you are comfortable running with, and then also being able to swim with. I personally don't like buoys because it arches my back in a way that is not comfortable. So I don't use one in a swim run hardly at all, but it's very
No,
purposeful.
stop it. Just stop it.
I don't like them, but we use them a lot very purposefully, and we use a specific kind of buoy with Tower 26 where you can fill one of the chambers, and so that gets the body position, at least for me, where I'd like for it to be. But anyhow, I think for most people, especially when you're wearing shoes and you're trying to save your legs, the pool buoy is the way to go for swim run.
So it sounds like you should be training with your paddles, but not 100% of the time. There's a spot for it, and then if you are lucky enough to get an outdoor kind of swim run specific session, it's probably the time to be using your swim run shoes and testing all that gear out. I think whoever operates your lap pool will also thank you for not wearing your shoes in the pool, if possible.
Coach Jerry has he's just like, bring your running shoes to the pool one day, and this was years ago. We were swimming at this little pool. It was in the basement of a parking garage. It was 3 lanes, and I swear to God, it was like 99% chlorine. This pool, you'd get out and your skin would be burning off you. But one day he's like, "Hey, bring your running shoes to the pool." We're like, "Okay, maybe we're gonna run out of the water." He's like, "Okay, put on your running shoes, and we're gonna do kick sets." I swear to God, it was the hardest thing. Good thing the pool was only 3 feet. I would have died. It was the hardest thing I've ever done.
That sounds pretty bad.
Brutal. So you guys are nuts. If you're not using a pole buoy with shoes on, come on.
And then I heard the stretch cords as well. It sounds like that's something that you're using every time, and it sounds a twofold situation. That one, you're kind of warming up those shoulder rotator cuff muscles, but then also at the same time building strength. Obviously, if you stand back further from wherever they're mounted, that's going to be more resistance, and you can move up closer to where they're mounted for less. So it sounds like the thing is, we have a whole list of equipment that we make our athletes get before they start, when they start with Tower 26, and every piece of equipment has a reason, right? So we have the buoy for alignment, tautness. We have the snorkel to keep your head straight, make sure you keep all the, there's a reason for everything. We don't use it as crutches. We use it as tools to reinforce good habits within our, 3 staples: tautness, alignment, propulsion, which is what we promote with our athletes. We don't even have paddles on that list because the paddles are just it creates such a load on athletes' shoulders. If they don't have a really, really good swim stroke, it's going to create some major imbalances and cause that, that rotator cuff stress, labrum tears, things like that. So we don't even have it on there. So we don't promote use of paddles within our general swimmers. Being that swim run is becoming so prevalent, there's so many athletes taking on the challenge. We do have athletes using the paddles now, but it's one you got to ease into it, and you have to do the work outside the pool, like Meg's saying, with the stretch cords. You have to do shoulder stability work. You have to do shoulder strengthening work, because the biggest thing going in the race day is consistency and staying healthy. And if you're adding too much load on these shoulders, because all of a sudden you grab a dinner plate size of paddles, I think the Stroke Maker blue ones, if you grab those right away and you start swimming with those, you're going to have an injury. You're not going to get the race day healthy. And so you're better off slowly building up from small to medium to large to extra large, if you ever get there, and doing everything outside of the water that you can do to keep that shoulder stability, keep that intrinsic core strength. Core is huge in, shoulder health as well. So make sure you're doing your planks. Make sure you're doing your little tiny 2.5 pound dumbbells. I know, Chris, that you don't lift anything less than 50 pound dumbbells, but taking a check to the ego and saying, okay, I'm going to get 2.5 pounds and do 1,000 arm raises just to work on those tiny little rotator cuff muscles. I mean, it's of the utmost importance so you can stay healthy and build in the race day and get the best performance you can have because you had that consistency. Jim, you got Chris figured out, so that's pretty good.
I don't know if you heard me. I did over 1,000
push-ups.
My Ron Burgundy impersonation.
So,
triangle push-ups, right? Just on your knuckles.
Definitely.
what would be some signs that you would either be feeling or something you noticed with your stroke if you did sort of scale up from the small paddle to the if your paddles are too big for you and you can't really handle them, besides like, oh, my shoulders are feeling blasted, what would another kind of signal be, maybe on the stroke or whatever, that you're sort of out of your element on the paddle size?
Like stroke breaking?
So it's funny you bring this up, because the estrogen on the other side of this call, the face of this podcast right now, Megan Melgaard, is the guru of swim video analysis, right? She can look at a swimmer and break it down to the, I'll use a French term, but I'm not going to say it right now. To the smallest minute detail, she can break it down. So you could not have asked a better question for the swim video analysis guru of Megan Melgaard.
Well, thank you, Jim. You taught me everything I know, so I do appreciate it. But I would say the first thing that you would feel would be a shoulder impingement. So yes, you would get a little bit tired, but if you're wearing a paddle that's really too big for you, then your shoulders, like you said, are going to feel it. But I do think an impingement would be your first issue.
So basically, instead of using a stroke maker, you'd be using a stroke breaker.
Exactly. I like that. Yes. But yeah, stroke maker has so many different levels, sizes of paddles. So start small and then increase into it.
Cool.
So we recently did an episode where we were talking about swim paddles, and one thing that we were kind of talking through was kind of being course specific, where you might have some currents, you might have some of the swims might be downstream, and some of them might be upstream. So where the size of paddle could be sort of determined by the course that you're on. So if it's just no current or anything, you can just use big old paddles if you're trained up for them. But what do you think about the strategy of maybe using smaller paddles for races where there's strong currents that you're going against, so you can keep your stroke rate up? Do you think that has any validity, or would you say that you should use as big of paddles as you can handle effectively?
I think you're right on. You are adapting to the environment. So based on whatever the current is, if it's a very strong current and you're going straight into it for the majority of the race, then yes, I would go with a smaller size paddle. And I think a lot of the courses have very many dynamic opportunities in terms of, you may get a downstream, you may get an upstream, you may get in an eddy. In some instances, got caught in one of those in Maine. And so you don't want those larger size of paddles. I think for the majority of it, go with something that's medium, that will benefit you for the most part, like the largest portion of the race. So if you have one super long stretch that's maybe 1,650 or so, and then some of the smaller sections, hopefully if those are upstream shorter, then adapt your paddle size to the environment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And obviously testing out different paddle sizes or different equipment in open water is going to help you kind of determine what you are most comfortable with as well. So be sure.
Yeah, but the more practice you do go into it, and every job has a specific tool, right? So if you, like you said, you're going to keep that cadence up going into the current, you got to be comfortable with the small paddles, and you got to have them and have practice with them. If you're with the current, you're taking these long, huge strokes, you got to use the big paddles. And sorry to keep using the tool analogy, but they always say carpenter's only as good as his tools, right? So you got to be like, go to the bike. If you got a long flat course that's got a tailwind, you're going to use a disc wheel. If you got crosswinds and a hilly course, you're going to use a 404 wheel. You use the tool for the job and be comfortable.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good analogy there for
yeah,
folks.
Absolutely. And in choppy water situations too, you want to adapt to that also. It might be pretty hard to get through a bunch of chop with a big paddle. So you're going to want to be more streamlined, go with a smaller size.
Don't you know it?
That's this is gold. So we've kept you guys on for a long time, and we really, really appreciate you guys coming on.
Even Jim.
like I said, we can keep going. I got hours.
I mean, I think we should probably.
I have a question for you guys. Actually, what are your thoughts on socks?
Funny you should
wearing
ask.
Socks
We have a lot of thoughts on socks. So you mean specifically for swimrun?
Yes.
So there's basically two considerations that you want for socks. The first one is you want to try to keep debris from getting in there, whether it's sand, rock, stuff like that. So you want something typically that's at least calf height just to try to lock everything out. You want to stay away from things that'll be
Wool.
like cotton or wool. I mean, some wool is like smart wool is fine. Depends on the weave, I guess, on wool. But you want something that's, wicking. It isn't just going to get super soggy like your dad's old 1980s tube socks that he's still
Gold
wearing.
toes.
Gold toes, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the rest is just kind of more about like
Preference. But I use knee-high, like CEP or Swiftwick knee-high synthetic fibered socks.
Yeah, and it should work.
You need a little
with the
something
shoe.
to help because there's a lot of rhubarb and roughage coming out of everything's not a nice beach that you're wandering out on like Bo Derek. It's there's rocks and algae and climbing. You got to give your partner a hand to pull them up and all this sort of stuff. So your shins do kind of take a little bit of a beating sometimes. So there is kind of that protection element to it.
And some warmth, I guess.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's really the main thing with socks. I think. A question we get a lot is about like, do you get blisters and stuff? And I've obviously never had that problem from running in wet shoes or whatever. But yeah, I don't know.
Guys, all the sock talk is just enthralling. I'm just on the edge of my seat listening to this sock talk. Amazing.
We'll
Thank
send
you
you
for
some
that question,
links,
Megan.
Jim. You could buy some new tube socks for yourself.
So we had Jerry and Emma Kate on. We've had you guys on. I mean, I don't know how to really thank Tower 26 for
the whole squad.
Yeah,
offering the whole squad up.
Coming up.
Wait a minute. Wait. So obviously you're going to rate us. Who did the better podcast, us or Jerry's garbage podcast?
Well, we have to. We're not going to rate it. We're not going to rate it.
We'll let the numbers. It'll be a
data-driven
decision based off downloads.
Yeah, so we'll
Wow, obviously we Meg, congratulations.
Way to go, team.
Good work. Obviously it's a done deal.
And obviously you can learn more about Tower 26 at tower26.com. They have a book out, Learning the Tower 26 Method, which Chipper and I read and thought it was really helpful.
Bellow Press.
Is there any place where folks can find you if you want them to reach you outside of Tower 26? Instagram handles, meme accounts? Anything like that?
Yeah, just Jim Lube on Instagram. Go to tower26.com. There's all info there. And we are always here in Southern California. Come join us for a workout. We have workouts every day of the week. So we look forward to all people. All are welcome. So
great. Awesome. And you do offer a virtual coaching program. So it's not specific to Southern California. If you're in Portland, Maine, or wherever, you can still be coached.
Yeah,
up by
that's
Tower
something
26.
we launched a few years back, and it's been awesome. So luckily we had a programmer swimming for us. I mean, one of the smartest guys, Christophe Balestra, just randomly swimming for us, and he's one of the biggest names in video game design. We went to him and said, "Hey, we want to build a subscription plan out." And he took it and ran with it, built this whole infrastructure, this whole platform where we take the workouts that we do in Santa Monica, El Segundo with Tower 26. We write them up. We give audio file. We give a ton of videos as to how to execute. It's all based on, what type of swimmer that athlete is. Someone that's a pro swimmer is level 1. Someone who's a beginner is level 4, and everybody else is in between. Mm-hmm. And it's all scaled down accordingly based on their specific ability level. Those athletes have access to coaches. Coaches give feedback on the sets. So it gives that personal coaching experience no matter where that athlete is in the world. And, I think we have athletes in, God, Meg, how many countries do we have athletes following the subscription
256.
Wow. That's amazing.
Huge.
That's amazing. Well,
yeah. And, a lot of that, I know you guys were kind of mentors to the Low Tide Boyz, just all joking aside, because the Tower 26 podcast is the number one podcast in triathlon. So, you're welcome. No big deal.
Yeah, well, we're the number one podcast in swimrun, so...
One of one, baby.
Huh? Yeah.
Champions talking to champions. I love this. We don't associate with anybody lower than us.
We're the only active swimrun podcast in the world right now.
Don't have to follow it up with that. Like when I have a 75-year-old woman first in her age group, she's first in her age group. I don't care if there's no one else in that age group.
Oh yeah, of course. You have to race whoever shows up.
Sure.
You're number one. No one else is doing a swim run podcast for free. So donate to these guys' Patreon, or else I'm coming to your door and I'm taking the money from you.
Patreon subs through the roof after this episode.
I know.
And we'll thank you for that. We'll do 5. Thank you for that, Jim and Megan. We do appreciate everyone coming on, and thanks to our listeners for sending in all those questions. Appreciate it.
Guys, it's been awesome. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the success of the Low Tide Boyz.
Cheers.
This has been great. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for listening to the Low Tide Boyz, a swim run podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review on iTunes if you're so inclined.
You can also sign up for a newsletter at lowtideboyz.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at the Low Tide Boyz on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, drop us an email at lowtideboyz@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Writing Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swimrun activities, hobbies, and other bullshit we do.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
And then a run.
And then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then run to the finish line. And just keep going until you're done.
Yes, or
until
run
you
to
cross the finish line.
Or run to the car.
Or run to your car.
Somewhere. Just keep running.
Peace.